Welcome to Jason's Vegan Kitchen. Today I'm cooking up a cozy noodle soup which is perfect for chilly evenings or if you're feeling unwell.
This recipe works great with pretty much any toppings you have ready and on hand. First of all, just prepare all of your vegetables and toppings. So here I've got a couple of spring onions, one whole yellow onion. I've already got a tub of chopped coriander and chilies that I had from the day before, some defrosted sweet corn, sesame seeds for sprinkling. You can use a piece of fresh ginger, which you've peeled and chopped. Here I'm just using frozen. I'm also using frozen chopped garlic and a tin of full-fat coconut milk, a few teaspoons of any curry powder that you like, some ground turmeric, half a teaspoon of cumin, half a teaspoon of ground coriander, a block of tofu if you're using tofu as one of your toppings, a carrot, I'm using some broccoli here, some soy sauce, a lime just as a topping, some sweet chili sauce. If you're frying your tofu, then you'll also need some corn flour or some nutritional yeast, 1 to 2 tablespoons. You also need some rice noodles or other noodles of your choice. I particularly like udon noodles. Oops, I forgot to mention earlier that we also need some stock powder. I'm using chicken because I think that gives the best flavor. You may prefer to use stock that's already made. So prepare all of your spices, your 2 teaspoons of curry powder, half teaspoon of turmeric, half teaspoon of coriander, half teaspoon of cumin, and give it a really good mix. Prepare your onion, so just chop off the top and tail and cut it into fairly thick slices. Chop your spring onion, prepare your broccoli if you're using broccoli. So I like to chop the end off and then cut off the florets around the outside and then cut off the central part of the florets and then peel the outside parts of the main stem and cut the stem into thin medallions as this gives a nice crunchy texture to the soup. And then chop all of your florets into small pieces or slice them and soak all of that in salted water for a good 5 minutes while you're preparing the other ingredients. I have a colander which is slightly smaller than my bowl, so I like to use that to weigh down the broccoli to keep it submerged. Then prepare your carrot, so give it a good wash. Chop off the ends and then peel it, and then use the peeler to put your carrot into lovely ribbons. Just be careful with your fingers with the peeler. I like to get a few ribbons from one side and then put it down on the bench in order to peel the opposite side, but you do you. If unlike me you need to chop and prepare your coriander and chilies, do so now. If you're using tofu, I would suggest that you flavour it and fry it first. I've tried it just with normal tofu straight from the container with the excess liquid squeezed out. However, it doesn't taste very good, or at least it doesn't taste very good to me. I find it a bit bland. So I don't actually bother using a tofu press. What I do instead is freeze the tofu and then fully defrost it, and that makes it a little bit spongier and it helps to get rid of the liquid. So I simply take the tofu out and then use my hands to squeeze out any excess liquid and cut it into cubes. Toss your tofu in a few tablespoons of soy sauce or tamari sauce. Just make sure it coats really evenly by giving it a really good stir several times so that all of the tofu looks the same color when you're finished. If you're using some stock powder, I like to use a little bit of chicken. It gives it a little bit of extra flavor. Then add about a teaspoon or 2 now and also coat again. And then just to dry off the tofu before frying it, I like to use a couple of teaspoons of corn flour or cornstarch, just stirring in between after you add 1 teaspoon at a time. Nutritional yeast works brilliantly instead of cornstarch if you prefer. Heat up a shallow non-stick frying pan. Make sure it's super hot before you add your oil. I rarely use oil for cooking, however tofu is one of those exceptions for me. I just find that the texture and the taste isn't quite right when it's dry fried or cooked in the air fryer. So I'm adding all of the tofu to the pan at once and immediately tossing the pan to get a little bit of oil around the outside edges of all of the pieces of tofu. And then just gently fry for a couple of minutes, making sure that you're tossing it regularly in order to keep the heat distributed rather than keeping it on one side and burning. Adjust your heat as you need to. I find about a medium is about right. That way nothing gets burned. I often like to set my kitchen timer for 1 minute so that if I'm busy in the kitchen and doing something else, it reminds me just to go back to the pan and keep tossing the pan and resist temptation to keep eating it like I do. You're done cooking the tofu once it's lightly golden on all surfaces, and you just need to put that into a container and put it to one side and resist eating the rest of it. Let's start the soup base now. So get a medium or large pan onto a fairly high heat. Once the pan's nice and hot, then add your onion and turn it down to about medium heat. You don't need any oil for this part, so just keep stirring the onion, and if you notice that it's going particularly dry or starting to brown too quickly, Turn down your heat a little bit and add a few tablespoons of stock or water to keep it hydrated. Once the onion is nice and soft, then you can add your garlic and ginger and keep stirring for another 1 to 2 minutes maximum. Again, just add a few tablespoons of water or stock to keep this hydrated if it looks like it's browning too quickly. Next, add your curry spice and salt mix and give it a really good coating of those onions, garlic and ginger in the pan. I recommend stirring constantly at this point rather than leaving the pan alone because it can burn quite quickly. And again, you can add 1 or 2 tablespoons of stock or water just to keep this from burning. And once it's nice and fragrant, you can then add your coconut water and 5 cups of stock or 5 cups of boiling water with 5 teaspoons of that stock powder. Once the soup base has boiled and you've turned it down to a simmer, you can then start to add your other liquid flavors, up to 1 to 2 tablespoons of soy sauce or tamari and 1 to 2 tablespoons of sweet chili sauce if you're using them. Before you proceed, just taste the soup base to make sure you're happy with it. If not, adjust to taste. So the broccoli's been soaking for about 5 minutes in the salted water. I've given it a really good rinse to get rid of the salt and the dirty water, and I'm now just filling a bowl with boiling water in order to blanch the broccoli for about 5 minutes. Now, if you're serving for 4 people straight away, you can continue to add your noodles and then cook the noodles in the sauce, which is my preferred method. You can also prepare your noodles separately and then add them to the bowl as a topping at the end. However, I find that the flavor of the noodles is a little too bland that way. On this occasion, I'm only making enough soup for me, so I'm actually going to use a ladle to take about 2 to 3 cups of the soup broth out of the main pan and putting it into a smaller pan. This will allow me to make the portion of noodles that I want in the smaller pan, and I can keep all of the rest of the beautiful soup base in the fridge to use another time. You can of course cook all of your noodles straight into the larger pan of stock, but if you're not eating it straight away, I tend to find that especially the wheat-based noodles absorb too much of the liquid as it stands in the fridge, so it's not as great reheated. If you're doing it this way, I would definitely suggest that you use rice noodles though, as the rice noodles don't tend to absorb the liquid whilst it's standing in the fridge and it reheats better. So add your noodles and cook according to the packet instructions. I'm just cooking these for 2 to 3 minutes. Now assemble all of your toppings and grab your bowl. A really wide, large bowl works best for this. Oops, I forgot to quarter the lime earlier, so I'm just quickly doing that now. If you're using spinach, then add a couple of handfuls of the spinach to the bottom of the bowl now before adding your noodle soup base. Then add whatever toppings you fancy. So I'm adding the blanched and drained broccoli, the delicious crispy tofu, some carrot ribbons, a handful of the defrosted sweet corn, a good handful of the chopped coriander, and a few pieces of sliced red chilli. And finishing it off with a really good sprinkle of sesame seeds. This looks lovely and does give a little bit of extra crunch and taste, but roasted cashews work great also. And I'm just finishing off with a few pieces of that spring onion or green onion. This looks absolutely delicious. It tastes even better. It's so easy to customize, and I love to have the soup base prepared in the fridge to go at any time so that when I'm hungry, I can grab some of that, add my noodles, and then add whatever toppings I've got available. Here are some extra topping ideas for you. A handful of spinach, which can be blanched beforehand or let it wilt in the hot soup. Sauteed mushrooms, pan-fried or boiled bok choy. Roasted pumpkin or sweet potato. Courgette which has been spiralized or peeled into ribbons, crushed peanuts or cashews, and some vegan prawns or plant-based chicken.
Thanks for watching this video. If you're looking for more comforting, delicious, quick and easy to make recipes, then please check out another of my videos.